Hello and a warm welcome. You're watching News Now with me, Jude Sanat, even as my colleague Sumita joins in from our Delhi studios. It's a grim start to the afternoon today, especially given the aftermath of all that we saw in Nepal over the last 12 hours or so. In fact, the death toll due to that massive flash flooding in Nepal has now reached 270, even as rescuers are racing against time to find at least 826 people who are still missing. Now, 288 Indian tourists are among those in the list of missing in the Great Himalayan Tragedy. The flash floods were caused, remember, after an avalanche blocked the flow of the Lende tributary of the Botikoshi and it first hit Timure near Nepal's border with China at the Rasuwagadi post. Now, Kritika from Times Network gets us the latest report from the devastation on the ground.
Certainly, this situation is quite grim as far as the rescue operations are also concerned, because even as the Member of Parliament was also telling us that the intensity of the floods was so much that entire villages have been flattened out. In fact, currently I'm reporting from the Trishuli military training camp, where you'll be able to see that helicopters after helicopters in fact are coming in. Some are coming in with Kathmandu carrying relief material, some are coming in from Roshua, the district that has been the most impacted by floods. They're bringing in fact, injured and rescued people who are then taken all the way across this field towards the Army Relief Center that has been set up. Now, in that particular relief center, first aid is being given. But look here, look over here, right outside the barricading of the military center are a number of people all lined up from the main gate till there. They're all waiting for information on their loved ones who have been missing. So we have army personnel here who, after injured people are brought in, note down their details, and this is the place wherein they announce those names. And once that connection is made, people can then go and meet their loved ones as well. You'll be able to see the relief center on your screens right now. Our video journalist is showing you how tents have been set up by the Nepal Army. There are different, in fact, sections here. First, they're taken to the place where their details, their names, their addresses, their phone numbers are written down. Right next to it is another tent wherein immediate first aid is provided by a team of trained Nepali army doctors as well. On your screens also you'll be able to see how another, in fact, scenic air helicopter is ready for liftoff. This will be going to Roshua now again to ferry in more injured people. We've seen families walk in all in a state of shock. A number of people who have lost their everything. Some family members are also missing in. So, of course, not a very, very grim situation. Locals here tell us that this is even more serious than, of course, the earthquake and the aftermath of that was seen a few years ago as well. So, of course, all the efforts of the Nepali army currently is on ensuring that the relief material as well as the rescue operation continue unabated. Again, on your screens, you'll be able to see how water is being brought in by the Nepal army officials as well. So, continuously, aid is being brought in for the relief of the people who have been injured. They're all camping here. We're also hearing of, in fact, two deaths. Two dead bodies also that were brought at this very military training camp as well. But currently, leaders tell us that it is very difficult to give an exact estimate on this number because there are still many areas where connectivity is off, where, of course, rescue operations are also taking some time to reach remote areas as well. There's layers and layers of debris all around. But you'll be able to get an idea of the seriousness of this with just the quantity of people, also the number of people, rather, who are waiting here for information on their loved ones right on this side of the military training center. Now, where we're reporting from in Trishuli, Swati, again, the entire area has been cut off. So, from Kathmandu, one will not be able to come here by road. We've also had to take a chopper in order to be here. A lot of people, in fact, are traveling.
All right. Thank you very much, Kritika, for that very, very comprehensive update on all that's transpiring in Nepal at the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see the visuals absolutely horrific devastation that has taken place in the country. And Kritika, we do hope that you'll keep yourself safe. And thank you very much once again for getting us those inputs. Ladies and gentlemen, in fact, in relation to the devastating floods in Nepal, the External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, has held a review meeting with officials of the MEA and Indian ambassadors in Kathmandu and Beijing. In fact, the MEA spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal and Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri were amongst those who participated in the meeting. Minister Jaishankar said that the urgent efforts are currently underway to ascertain the status and well-being of all Indians in flood-affected areas of the country. He also said that they are working closely with the Nepalese side, both on this aspect and on relief efforts that are currently underway. Let's listen into what the MEA spokesperson, Mr. Randhir Jaiswal, had to say on the rescue and relief operations.
We have been able to rescue 21 Indian nationals. These 21 group of 21 people are from Tamil Nadu, and we are making available their names on our X handle, so you can get the details. Our embassy, our ambassador has spoken to people in the group and have assured all possible help. They are coming to Kathmandu, hopefully, and then arrangements will be made for their travel back home as soon as possible. Let me also give you an update on the Chinese side. We have received information that a number of Indian nationals who had gone on the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra are currently stranded on the Chinese side. Our embassy in Beijing is making all efforts for their safe evacuation. There are approximately 200 Indian nationals there who have sought our assistance for evacuation. Of them, 95 are in Darchen and currently proceeding to Hilsa to cross over into Nepal. 4 are in Geelong city, 30 in Zutulpuk, and they are en route to the town of Saga, and 60-70 others who are also heading towards Saga. Our mission is in touch with local authorities, and they are doing their best for their rescue and evacuation. Let me also tell you that there may be some people who are missing there, and we are trying our best to locate them through the local authorities.
All right, so the MEA spokesperson suggesting that 21 Indians have been rescued, and of course, stress and distress calls have been made by over 250 people. But ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the West Asia conflict, because that's another conflict that has not really ended. In fact, it's been 6 months since the US-Israel war on Iran began. In fact, the conflict has entered a prolonged stalemate state. But diplomacy is now back in focus. Now, from the killing of Iran Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and devastating strikes on Iranian military infrastructure to an intense campaign of missiles and drones, the war has fundamentally reshaped the region. Now, what we know is that Qatar's Prime Minister is heading to Tehran to push for de-escalation and to make sure that these negotiations that were earlier happening between the United States and Iran, they can restart. In fact, Iran and Oman are working on a framework to restore commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, what we do know as of now, as far as this conflict is concerned, the latest that we're picking up from reports is that Washington is, of course, returning to economic pressure on Iran and, of course, its trading partners. President Donald Trump has said that financial strength of the United States is going to move the country towards a very big victory over Iran. He's also indicated that the U.S. is in no hurry to negotiate. Meanwhile, U.S.'s sanctions against Iran's are an attempt to sort of target the country's aviation sector, digital technology, shipping, gold and digital assets. And of course, amidst all of this, Iran has urged, the UN to assess the humanitarian impact of US's sanctions. In fact, there was a letter that was written by Iranian Foreign Minister Saeed Abbas Araghchi in which this was mentioned. What we do know from the Qatari side is that the Prime Minister is visiting Tehran to meet Iranian officials to revive negotiations. And in fact, on the back of that, what we've seen over the past couple of hours is that oil prices have sunk, and oil prices have also sunk after Iran, Oman have claimed that a framework was discussed to establish a temporary shipping route. Remember, the route has been closed. It has been marred by attacks, something that Iran claims. And of course, then counterattacks have happened from the United States side. However, of course, hostilities as far as military escalation is concerned, it has not happened. It has come to a standstill because the United States now wants economic pressure to do the job as far as Iran and its trading partners are concerned. So, Jude, that's an update from West Asia. The war, of course, has now entered the 6th month. However, there is no sight of any peace deal that could be arrived at between the United States and Iran. But let's now take a look at how the markets fared today.
Right, Sumita. In fact, on that note, closer home in India, the Nifty closed below the 24,100 mark. Even as broader markets performed relatively better today, metals and PSU banks came under pressure, while pharma and healthcare lent some degree of support. Hindalco and HDFC Bank were the top losers on the Nifty today, and that's a bit of a roundup in terms of how markets went as far as today was concerned. But Sumita, India-Japan partnership seems all set to head the fast lane. What are you picking up from what's going on, in the land of the rising sun with regard to trade relations between both countries?
Absolutely, Jude. So India-Japan partnership is in focus, and it's set for a major boost because Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal is in Japan, and he's taken a huge business delegation along with him. In fact, he had a conversation with Japanese companies as well, and they are looking at stepping up investment in India. Minister Piyush Goyal now says that Japan has committed 7 lakh crores of investments in over 10 years. In fact, Times Network's Amit caught up with the Commerce Minister to understand a bit more on the kind of partnerships, the kind of investments that we're going to see from Japan. Even the momentum has continued till date. But let's take a look at this exclusive conversation, ladies and gentlemen, that my colleague Amit had with the Union Minister.
से जैसे अब हाईटेक हाई क्वालिटी प्रोडक्ट्स बनाने में भारत कामयाब होगा, जिस पे प्रधानमंत्री जी विशेष अपनी हर बैठक में फोकस करते हैं, तो मुझे विश्वास है कि जापान भी भारत से कई और नई चीजें लेना।
हाईटेक कंपनीज की बात थी, जो सर्टिफिकेशन का दिक्कत होती थी, आपने एक पहल भी की है, तो क्या सिर्फ जापान ही, क्या पूरे दुनिया के जो कंपनीज हैं, जो हाईटेक मशीन्स आएंगी, उस पर बीआईएस के जो सर्टिफिकेशन का जो छूट की बात हो रही है, तो उससे फायदा होगा? उससे
जो भी व्यक्ति भारत में किधर भी, भारत का हो या दुनिया में किधर का भी हो, रूल हम सेम रखते हैं। इसको कहते हैं नेशनल ट्रीटमेंट। कोई रूल जापान के लिए अलग नहीं बना रहे। ये भारत के भी जो लोग हाई क्वालिटी प्रोडक्ट्स बनाते हैं, उनको हर एक पुर्जे के लिए अलग अलग अप्रूवल ना लेना पड़े, क्योंकि स्वाभाविक है जब कोई सेमीकंडक्टर जैसी चीज बना रहे तो उसमें हर एक पुर्जा व्यक्ति अच्छा ही डालता है। तो अच्छे पुर्जे की जिम्मेदारी उन पे डाल के बीआईएस से एग्जेम्पशन देने के विचार पे मैं काम।
सेमीकंडक्टर को लेकर आपने अलग से मीटिंग की, आई को लेकर मीटिंग की, लेकिन जापान में सेमीकंडक्टर को लेकर बहुत ज्यादा कुछ ऐसा है नहीं, तो फिर यहाँ से सेमीकंडक्टर इंडस्ट्री के लिए आप क्या लेकर आएंगे?
आपको गलतफहमी है कि जापान में सेमीकंडक्टर के लिए है नहीं। मैं जितनी कंपनियों को मिला, कुछ ना कुछ उनका सेमीकंडक्टर वैल्यू चेन में रोल है, कि कोई केमिकल बनाता है, कोई गैस बनाता है, कोई हाई प्रिसिशन इंजीनियर इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कंपोनेंट्स बनाता है, फैब्स है, 2 फैब्स है, फैब्रिकेशन यूनिट्स है। तो जापान सेमीकंडक्टर में एक बड़ा मजबूत देश है और भारत को इससे बहुत लाभ है।
आखिरी सवाल सर, किस तरह की चिंताएं जताई यहाँ की जो कंपनीज जो भारत में जो आ रही हैं?
बहुत बड़ी चिंता ऐसी सामने नहीं आई है, पर हम तो ऐसी सरकार है जो जिसके भी कोई विषय सामने आते हैं उस पर गंभीरता से काम करते हैं।
Right, shifting focus to the sugar markets next. Escalating prices are turning into a key cost pressure for FMCG companies, with retail prices up nearly 40% since January. In fact, elevated palm oil costs are also adding to the pressure, while companies could in fact resort to grammage cuts in order to protect margins. My colleague Snehi joins us with more details.
Well, absolutely. Sugar has turned out to be bitter for FMCG companies, and this is a note coming in from Goldman Sachs, wherein they're saying that the retail prices of Indian sugar has reached as high as 58 rupees per kg as of August 2026, and sugar prices are up 40% since January, and this is one of the steepest rallies that we've seen in such a short time, over a decade. Key drivers behind this surge, what is leading to this spike in sugar prices? This is on the back of some supply pressures that are being aggravated by by El Nino related rainfall deficits, and they have affected sugarcane yields, and a tight carryover stock with an estimated 4.1 metric tons only of sugar by September 2026. This could crunch the sugar supply and keep prices elevated. So on the pricing front, here's what's happening. On one hand, you've got government intervention that is allowing 1 million tons of duty-free imports of sugar to India, and that has slightly cooled off sugar from its peak pricing. On the flip side, the upcoming festive demand ahead of the October-November crushing season could keep a sugar price elevated. So it's just a wait and watch right now as to what happens to sugar pricing. And not only sugar, it's in fact a double whammy coming in for FMCG companies, because along with sugar, we've also seen a spike in palm oil costs. And on the back of that, shrinkflation or grammage reduction will require time to execute. And this could be something that could pressurize near-term or especially quarter-2 margins for some of the FMCG staples. That's what Goldman Sachs believes. Now let's understand the company-wise exposure to sugar for Britannia. Highest reliance to sugar, 15 to 16% of its raw material is made up by sugar, 20% raw material made up of palm oil, which means the overall impact could be very high for Britannia. Nestle India, roughly 6 to 7% raw material basket made up of sugar and moderate exposure to palm oil, keeping its overall impact moderate. And for Varun Beverages, while they have a 10% sugar exposure, they have zero exposure to palm oil, because remember, they make aerated drinks, and on the back of that, the impact could be moderate to low for Varun Beverages earnings. Just talking about all of these companies in a little more detail, Britannia has 65 to 70% revenue reliance on low unit price packs, and that is where we could see shrinkflation getting hit the worst. Forward contracts and reduced ad spends, however, if this is something they are able to execute, may buffer margins in the second quarter. For Nestle, higher pricing power provides a cushion to the company, but steep valuation at 58 times the price to earnings for the stock is trading right now leaves margin for error. And lastly, for Varun Beverages, it's best positioned in terms of how much sugar makes up of its portfolio, 10% of raw material costs, and it's offset by a portfolio shift towards low and no sugar beverages, and its zero palm oil exposure also helps Varun Beverages. So here we could see a very little to no impact in terms of quarter-2 earnings, but yes, watch out for Britannia as well as Nestle, and that is the kind of impact that sugar and elevated palm oil pricing could have on quarter-2 earnings of some of these FMCG staples.
That's right. Thank you very much, Snehi, for that quick update as far as sugar prices are concerned, even though the government has taken moves to contain the prices of sugar as we head into the festive season. But let's talk about onion prices, because they are rising subsequently as the government is selling subsidized onion at 35 rupees per kg. My colleague Kuldeep caught up with the Consumer Affairs Secretary Nidhi Khare. Let's listen into an excerpt of this exclusive conversation that he had with him regarding the prices of onion and how the government plans to sort of ensure that these are moderated in the coming few months.
We'll be selling it for 35 rupees per kg.
And at how many places and for how long?
We have about 110 outlets of Kendriya Bandar, 9 outlets of NCCF, about 34 outlets of NAFED, and then we are also trying with about 300 outlets of Safal. Apart from that, we are also going to sell it through the vans. So in some of the select, say colonies or very prominent places like metros, we will also be trying to reach out to the consumer. So whoever, wherever the footfalls are very high, or wherever there is a weekly bazaar. So in all these places, we are going to have a very targeted approach, and these onions will be made available.
But what is the reason behind the price rise in onion? Is it because of shortage of supply?
So there is no shortage of onions across the country. Actually, according to the agriculture estimates, the production was this year 307 lakh metric ton, which is very, very good in terms of production. Now the onions are basically with the people, but I think because of the El Nino scare and other issues, there is a group of intermediary traders who try to unnecessarily, and they basically escalate the prices. But I think the way in which we have handled the buffer and the way in which we have taken out the timely intervention for the retail say sale, I think this will go. This will actually bring down the prices very fast.
Any idea like for how long the government will sell it at subsidized rate?
So we have enough in our buffer stock, so we will continue to monitor the markets very closely, and based on the price volatility in different locations, we will be sending the buffer stock to those cities.
Ma'am, any plan to control exports or to ban exports of onion?
Absolutely, there is no question of banning exports because, as I said, we have enough of onions.
Shifting focus to automobiles next, India's electric two-wheeler market is getting increasingly crowded, but it's the same market that's also consolidating around a handful of leading players. In fact, with low entry barriers and increasing price competition, product differentiation, margins and after-sales service will no doubt be the key. My colleague Abhi joins in to explain how the space is shaping up.
So is the e-two-wheeler space getting crowded with the new entrants competing with the legacy players and a slew of product launches with competitive pricing is affecting the industry? So let's have a look at how the industry is structured. With 94% of the market share among the top 10 OEMs tells us that the top legacy players are still dominating the market, with the remaining 6% of the market share being distributed among 180 plus e-two-wheeler brands, which tells us that the new entrants are still struggling to take a pie of the share and are competing in this heavily intense competition of the e-two-wheeler segment, with legacy players having top 10 OEMs having 94% market share and the new entrants having 6% of the remaining market share. So why is it so crowded? What is leading to this crowd in the e-two-wheeler segment? That is because of very low barrier to entry, and it is very easy to make an entry in this segment, as we can see as a lot of players have entered in this segment. The product differentiation among brands and across portfolio is narrowing with very specific features, highlighting a specific brand in a niche, and new players are targeting very specific price points and the consumer segments to make a place in the market. So what is the launch pipeline of these top OEMs? We can see that for TVS Motors, there was various product launches in the festive season of October to November, with Bajaj Auto betting big on their Chetak success, and Ather Energy on the 29th of August is coming out with its Konark, which is a mass scooter, and they will be pricing it at a very strategic price point for the mass market, with Hero MotoCorp now shifting to the fixed battery Vedas and Ola Electric still ramping up their execution to make up for the lost ground. So up next is how is the market share divided between the top players. We can see that TVS Motors is leading the pack with 27.2% market share, followed by Bajaj Auto on the second position, and Ather Energy being the only non-legacy player in the top 3 list with a market share of 15 to 17%, followed by Hero and Ola Electric still trying to inch up the market share, currently at 7%, which is half of what it used to be around a year back. When we see on what the brokerage has to say on this, so Bernstein says that the market intensity, market competition is going to increase as we move forward, and the eventual winners in this segment will have strong product along with a scale that they can manage the unit economics better. So what impact will overcrowding have is it will lead to a consolidation in the market, with legacy players standing long and product differentiation along with the pricing point making all the difference. Strong battery and tech ecosystem is also supporting the growth in the segment. So who will win this game? All in all, players who will have strong battery and technology system, healthy unit economics, since EV two-wheeler is a space where still companies are losing money and are EBITDA negative, with only Ather Energy making it an EBITDA positive in the e-two-wheeler segment. Strong product and competitive pricing, and most of all, after-sales service network has to be really good, which we've seen in case of Ola has been suffering because of this very point. So all in all, the e-two-wheeler space is definitely getting crowded, but a strong product along with a strategic price point can help you win the game.
All right, thank you very much, Avi. So consolidation is going to be the norm as far as the two-wheeler segment is concerned. Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, from me and Jude, goodbye and thank you very much for staying tuned to ET Now.